Space and travel. Space travel. Into the final frontier. So, a game exists that is extremely physics-based, and that game is Kerbal Space Program. This game is glorious and deserves a spot in one of the greatest games of all time. I decided to take on a challenge and to land on 2 moons surrounding the starting planet, and return. It was tough, challenging, difficult, and overall a bad idea. Join this adventure as we laugh, cry, and overall pray that our rockets work. Before I begin, I only have a few rules for myself. If a Kerbal dies, they stay dead. I can also revert flight, which resets that flight, if a disaster occurs within the first minute of the flight. Let's begin. In this world, you start on a planet named Kerbin. Look how beautiful, how shiny. They have no idea what's about to hit them. The goal is to go on trips to get more science using tools. The science is used to get even more advanced technology. This more advanced technology is used to make better rockets, which is used to get more advanced technology, which is used to get better research, which is used to get more advanced technology, which is used to get better rockets, to get more research, which is used to get more advanced technology, which I think you get the point. So the obvious first choice is to make a rocket. With the few parts I had, I made the first rocket named Ground Control. I took it to the launch pad and started the engine. The rocket went up and then it went down, just how I designed it to go. When it went down, I did some science and recovered the ship. Using the science I made, I bought some more science. It makes sense, I swear. Keep up. I then made a second rocket, as is the next best thing to do. Got science recovered. Using this science, I bought the survivability upgrade so I don't die. I needed to make a rocket that could get me more science without leaving the atmosphere yet. So, the Geode missions were born, and the start was Geode 1, a rocket that was never designed to leave Kerbin, but was designed to get science. My only goal at this time was to get the upgrade Basic Science, which gives batteries, which are essential to space travel in this game. I flew Geode 1, did science, then recovered. Geode 1 did not go far, so an upgrade was needed. By using stages, a new rocket was made, the Geode 2. Geode 2 was launched, went up, and landed. I did some science, and I thought it would be a good idea to take Jeb on a walk. While on his walk, he tripped and fell down a mountain, which killed him. Poor Jeb. He will forever be in our hearts. A moment of silence as we respect this brave man who sacrificed his life for my own pleasure. I now know I need to make a rocket that can leave the atmosphere if I want to get batteries. And came in the Marvin Gaye 1, a new rocket so powerful and so advanced I can now barely leave the atmosphere. I then launched the most powerful rocket in the world and went up. I went over 70,000 meters, which is where the atmosphere ends and space begins. This was an achievement. I did it. I was in space. While I was in space, I did some science, went outside, and descended into the atmosphere. Soon after, I landed. With the science I made, I bought Basic Science, which gave me batteries. I then began making the Marvin Gaye 2 to enter orbit. The grand launch had to be redone since I forgot fins on the ship, which made it spin out of control the first time. I reverted the flight and added fins and tried again. And you may be asking, but Mossy, why are fins so important? Well, my dear viewer, fins are essential. They give control in the atmosphere. Without fins on modern day rockets, it would be so much easier for them to spin out of control. I then launched the Marvin Gaye 2 again. It went up, and finally, I would make an orbit. Or I guess not. I ran out of fuel. After landing and recovering the Marvin Gaye 2, I made a few small changes and relaunched. As I went up, I made a maneuver to orbit. I saw orbit in sight. I made the burn to orbit, and just like that, ladies and gentlemen, I was a couple thousand meters off of orbit. Well, all that for nothing. Running out of electricity, which turned off the life support systems, I began to descend. I did some science and recovered the Marvin Gaye 2. With this science, I researched general rocketry, which gave me more to use in building. As I was trying to check the tracking station, the game crashed. This was only the beginning of the crashes, which really sucked. Getting back into the game, I made the Marvin Gaye 3, the rocket that was sure to reach orbit. I launched, and it spun, so I had to reset. I then relaunched, and I made a true orbit. It was glorious. It was beautiful. It was right. Of course, the goal of this video was not to orbit, but to land on both moons surrounding Kerbin. So I made a new rocket. This rocket was a disappointment, like me, and after I realized I would not be able to go to the moon with it, I deorbited. When I recovered it, I never looked at it again, like my dad did with me. I bought stability, which gave me more fins so spinouts don't happen as often, and advanced rocketry, so I can have better rocket stuff. And so began a new rocket series. This series of rockets would be the most powerful in the world. Alright, I'll stop making that joke. These rockets would be known as the Frat Bro series. I began construction immediately on Frat Bro 1. This rocket would let me orbit not only the Mun, but Minmus as well, all in the same launch too. I launched Frat Bro 1 and went into orbit around Kerbin. I made my maneuver to the Mun and began my burn. Soon I entered Mun's sphere of influence, and after a little time warp began to orbit the Mun. I did my science and prepared for my trip home. But wait, I still have over 3,000 meters per second of delta V, and what will I do with this fuel? This is where I had the idea to go to Minmus as well, all in the same launch. I made my burn, and now I was on my way to Minmus. On the way there, I ran out of food. I feel bad for Valentina, who would starve soon. But look, you signed up for my astronaut program. There's gonna be some risk, and you probably won't make it back from all of your missions. I entered the Mun sphere of influence and began my orbit. I did my science and started my burn home. On the way home, Valentina began to starve. I honestly got nervous she would die, but as I entered Kerbin's atmosphere, I knew she'd be okay. Scared for her life and with PTSD, but okay. I recovered Frat Bro 1 and bought general construction with this science I earned. After this very successful mission, I knew it was time to land on the Mun. I began making a new rocket, the Frat Bro 2. This rocket had so much fuel, anyone who is not me could probably go to another planet with it. But I am extremely fuel efficient, so I can't do that. Sue me. The Kerbals may actually do that, don't give him more ideas. I launched Frat Bro 2 and made my orbit. I made the maneuver to the Mun and time warped to my burn. I realized my Mun periapsis is too high, which was a minor convenience, so I just used my insane fuel load to correct it. I approached the Mun and began to orbit. I chose a place to land and burned to retrograde to the surface. Of course, landing was a breeze because it's me. Kidding, it was very hard, I almost died. I did my science and planted my flag, which is the first flag to ever be put on a celestial object ever. No one has ever done this before. Never, ever. No big superpower in the 1960s did this. And no superpower has ever done this again or will. Never. It was me. I was the first. I left the Mun and began my journey to Kerbin. As I was leaving the Mun sphere of influence, my game crashed. Wonderful. Getting my game back, I went back to Kerbin. After landing and recovering, I immediately launched another Frat Bro 2 to Minmus. I pretty much copy-pasted everything, so I'll give you the cliff notes. Orbit, maneuver, burn, correction, burn, orbit, deorbit, land, science, flag, leave. On the way back to Kerbin, I ran out of food again. Valentina began to starve again, but she's a tough cookie, so she'll be fine. I was not exactly going to enter Kerbin's atmosphere with the trajectory I had, so I did have to make a correction burn. All was normal after this. Descent, land, recover. With all the science I made, I researched electronics, heavy rocketry, and advanced electronics. Frat Bro 2 was beautiful, but it was flawed. I made a new vessel to beat out these flaws. Frat Bro 3 had more food, more science, and more science storage. The perfect Kerbin vessel. I tested it out by flying it to the Mun. This whole mission was more for science, since I already had been to the Mun and completed my goal. So again, I'll give you the cliff notes. Launch, orbit, maneuver, burn, orbit, descend, land, science, leave, orbit, burn, home, slash. Using the science I got, I researched precision engineering, and just like that I had done it. I completed the goal of my video, which is to land on both moons. Both moons of Kerbin were conquered and shall never be the same again. I am a conqueror of worlds, a mercenary, a destroyer, but most important, a free man. They couldn't get me this time and they won't get me again. To leave on a cliffhanger, I made a new ship capable of going interplanetary to Duna, which is this game's Mars. Maybe the Martian video will come out soon, maybe it won't.